So welcome to HPE New Zealand webinar on demand series supported by Ecosystem. Through this series, we're going to be exploring what everything as a service means to you and your organizations. I'm Hesketh. I'm a principal CIO, principal analyst, CIO advisor in digital transformation with Ecosystem. Today, we're going to be looking at how cloud solutions are adopted by organizations. Ecosystem research is actually showing us that the use of cloud is slowly maturing, with organizations rating themselves as mature increasing last year in 2020 from 23% up to 35%. Security remains the top concern for organizations adopting cloud, but there's been a big shift in how organizations are perceiving their lack of readiness. This has jumped from 16% in 2020 to 53% this year. So clearly some concerns on people on how cloud can be implemented. So joining me today to talk about adopting cloud solutions is Trisha Ros, who's a strategy business and tech executive with HPE. So welcome, Trish. You've been in New Zealand now a little while. What are your perspectives of the country?
Well, Alan, maybe I'll start with how I got to this country before I go
Cool.
into my perspectives. I lead a team of strategic account leads at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. I joined in 2016, and at the time it was Cloud Technology Partners. So I joined a small firm, about 250 folks based in North America. And we really were helping our enterprise clients move to public cloud platforms, whether it was Amazon, Microsoft, or Google. And in 2018, a message went out across HP and said, hey, does anybody want to go to New Zealand and lead a large healthcare engagement down in Christchurch? So my hand went up and I said, let me ask my husband. And I called him and he said, when do we leave? So we came to New Zealand in 2019. And I was leading a large cloud transformation engagement for Canterbury District Health Board for a year and a half. And they went through just a really prescriptive approach in terms of how we help our clients get on and use the benefits of public cloud. And then in August of last year, I moved up to Auckland, and I've been helping a partner really think about how to leverage the cloud services that we have so that they can be a delivery arm for clients across New Zealand. And then prior to joining Cloud Technology Partners, I was CIO for a number of financial service insurance companies in the New York, New Jersey area. I'm from New York originally, and spent 8 years at AIG, which is definitely a marquee name here with the All Blacks. So was there in New York with AIG for 8 years. Spent a couple of years with Deloitte Consulting, learning my management consulting chops, and have a couple of software startups under my belt that didn't quite make me all the cha-ching that I had hoped. So I'm looking forward to speaking with you, Alan, and certainly others that are joining. So thank you.
Thanks, Trisha. You've been working with a wide range of clients on HPE's cloud offering, but what are the reasons you've seen clients move to a cloud solution?
Yeah, thank you, Alan, and thanks for everybody who's joining us today. There are a myriad of reasons why people jump on the cloud bandwagon, so to speak, but really focused on business outcomes. When I started with Cloud Technology Partners, gosh, back in 2016, it was all around saving cost. We're going to save some costs. We're going to take out some expense in the IT budget. And certainly that is one angle of public cloud. But as it's become more mature, as more organizations are getting onto public cloud, there's a lot more business reasons why you want to think about public cloud as another enabler to your technology, to your business. A couple of things. One would be, I worked with a client who really wanted to use the cloud for innovation in the sense that they were an insurance carrier, and they said, you know, we want to get out products faster to our captive markets and that our captive agents, and they were the sales agents. So they used the cloud to create proof of concept ideas, new product ideas. And they launched that out to this group and they said, hey, is that a product that you would buy? Do you think that will resonate in the marketplace? And if it did, they would take it forth and start to productionalize it, so to speak. And if not, they shut it down and went on to the next one. So it created this environment for R&D and experiment. So I think that's certainly one. I would say a couple of other things that it really helps with your quality of delivery and your speed. So because now you really can rely on a lot of automation. Push button automation brings up your infrastructure that slows down your time to market. So you can, again, get your servers, get your environment up a lot faster than before. Also, just when it comes to using the automation on public cloud, you can get out features, you can get out different enhancements to your end users a lot faster than you used to before. So instead of a release on your application every quarter, you could do it daily if that's really what your market, what your customers really wanted. So a lot of flexibility in how you can use the public cloud platforms or the cloud platforms to innovate.
So that agility is a major advantage you can't achieve in quite the same way on-prem. But few organizations are able to move their full workload to the cloud. What tactics have worked for your clients in introducing this complexity?
Yeah, you know, when we started, we'd go to clients and they're like, I want to move 100% of everything I have and shut down all my data centers. And come to realize, 5 years later, that that's not always easy to do. And I'll give you one client, Capital One, who was a real early financial services company for CTP, Cloud Technology Partners, where I started. They've been able to do that, but it was a 10-year journey. And they have gone from 40 data centers down to 4. And they're certainly a marquee customer for Amazon. So lots of publications out there around Capital One's journey. But I would say most of our clients, a couple of things I would say to get started is really spend some time planning and thinking through the reasons why you want to move to cloud. I've got hundreds, thousands of applications. They may not all be well suited to move to the cloud. So doing some assessments up front and figuring out what applications are well suited, which ones are going to need to be rewritten or re-platformed, and figuring out that first and creating your strategic roadmap, if you will. I would say that that's certainly a place to get started. Also, it's a journey. It's going to take some time. And how do you start getting the whole organization ready, whether it's your people, whether it's your processes, whether it's your security, risk, and compliance departments, your finance departments, they all have a play in this journey. So get your governance, get your folks together, your teams together, and just do a number of planning and thinking through what's best, what's the reason behind why you're moving, and then just get ready for a journey. Most of the times we come in and it's at least a year engagement. But again, clients, as I mentioned, the Capital One, that's going to be certainly a longer play if you're looking to reach I don't want to be in the data center business anymore. So it depends on where companies are along the spectrum.
So that planning is obviously critical, and a big part of planning is assessing risk. I mean, how have clients managed the risks of moving to the cloud, both during the change and post the introduction of the cloud services?
Yeah, I would say security is top of mind when people starting to think about using cloud. So as I mentioned, do a lot of planning up front, get those security, risk, and compliance folks involved at the beginning and start thinking about, hey, I have a on-premise, so to speak, security control framework. What do I want that to be when I go to cloud? What are those controls, both operational, both technical, and creating your risk control framework, your risk control map up front, super important. And then thinking through which frameworks do I want to use? Am I going to need to use HIPAA for that reason? Do I want to use Cloud Security Alliance? And they have a whole framework, a combination of them all. And then you've got to start thinking about which tools I'm going to use. So there's a lot embedded in that security. The two other areas that I would think about is data and where that data is going to reside and how protected, and can you move it all to a public cloud? Does it need to be more of a hybrid model? And starting to think through that. And then geographically, a lot of countries have some rules where you've got to keep data in country. Well, where I've been for the last year and a half in New Zealand, we don't have any public cloud data centers in New Zealand. So is that an option for some companies? And again, bringing in those security, risk, and compliance folks early on in your journey and making sure that you've planned that out is super important.
Yeah, I think the days of security by obscurity are long gone. That's got to be a big part of planning the scale of change. So the change to cloud is clearly a marathon, not a sprint. So how would you suggest a company get started?
Yeah, we, again, as I talked about planning, but we do a number of assessments up front for our clients. And that could be everything from, hey, do you need a business case? Do you need to really figure out the why from a financial perspective of moving to a public cloud or a private cloud or upgrading even your on-prem, but figuring that out. Then there's the piece around how ready is the organization to move and understanding where those gaps are as it relates to technology, as it relates to process, as it relates to people and skills. So thinking through that and doing an assessment up front so you understand where you are today from a baseline perspective and then where I need to go. The other area that we think about is twofold. Sometimes people don't even know which cloud environment should I use. And we'll do we call an application assessment, but really looking across all of your applications, whether you've got a few, whether you've got thousands. And we have a methodology to understand those applications, and we give them a suitability score. Are they suited to go to a public cloud? Are they better suited to stay onto a private cloud or even to remain on-prem until certain things are done to those applications? So again, laying that out and doing that up front, but a lot of planning before you even start, coding and putting your hands on your keyboard to really understand where the journey is and how you're going to map it out. And then you've got to figure out, again, what are your metrics? What are your KPIs? What are you going to measure to show that this program, this journey that you've received some investment for is actually meeting those milestones and reaching those outcomes that you expected up front. So we can help with any part of that journey along the way.
What are the sort of metrics you found work for companies? There's often process health metrics and outcome metrics, but what are some of the examples you've actually used successfully?
Yeah, we have operational, we have quality metrics, we have finance metrics, but we've got a number of them, but you really want to think about, for example, getting out more features, as I mentioned, might be super important to a company. So how do you measure that? Quality may be an issue. We deploy applications, they get out there, users start using them, and then we have to pull them back for whatever reason. So quality could be another metric. Sometimes clients come in and they say, we really want to be world-class as it relates to skills, cloud skills. So they'll measure how many people have been certified and trained, how many people do I have actually working on cloud projects across the organization. Certainly the financial metrics, and we have a dashboard that we can create. Hey, the program was going to cost this much and save this much. Are we actually doing that? And you can keep an eye on that along the way as well. Productivity from an innovation point of view. I released 4 new applications and products last year. Can I double that this year, right, with the same amount of staff? So the whole bunch of different kinds of metrics that you want to put in place. But again, thinking through that with a cross-functional enterprise team, because everybody's going to have a different view on this. You want to get everybody's point of view and create those all-important dashboards for your CXOs at their level, all the way down to the people who are actually doing the development and making sure that everybody along the way is meeting those metrics for you.
So COVID-19's highlighted the value of resilience to organizations. How does the cloud solution enhance an organization's capabilities in this area?
Yeah, it can do it's a lot of improvement when it comes to that. But again, as I keep trying to, you really want to think about that from a design perspective up front. So I like to describe, if you really architect an application, you don't even have to have DR in your language anymore, because you can design the architecture of the application to be hosted in multiple places, to know and be aware of each other. So if one site goes down, it knows to flip over to another one very quickly. And that's the same with data too. You can have your data replicated and stored in multiple locations. And if you architect it the right way, I think about, always use Netflix as an example, right? They've architected it so that it never, quote unquote, goes down. And that's really the way that you want to think about it. But in lieu of more traditional applications, architect it so that you have a primary and you have a backup, and you can even have a third as well. And test that every time you deploy code, it goes to both locations. Every time you're deploying data, it goes to both locations. And there's different levers depending on how much availability you want, how quickly you want that you can leverage from the public cloud and private cloud vendors as it relates to how much capability do you want? Do you want it to come up instantly? Are you okay with a couple of hours of downtime? So all that gets factored in to your process as well.
I remember sort of looking at internal on-prem, the cost of 24/7 operations obviously escalates very fast.
Right.
It seems cloud provides a much more cost-effective option in delivering that quality of solution. Is that perspective correct?
Oh, absolutely. When you don't need the use of your public cloud environment, you can shut it down and you're not paying for it. So I always like to give the example of if you've got environments other than production, and everybody does, training environments, testing environments, development environments, they don't need to be on 24/7. And when they're not on, you're not paying for them. So there's a lot of flexibility in being able to manage those costs as it relates to all those different environments you might need for one application. So absolutely.
What have you found a company should stop doing when adopting a cloud solution?
Oh, love that question. There's a number of things that come to mind in terms of stop doing. And I would say first and foremost is stop thinking, or don't even start thinking, that your new cloud platform is just another data center. It is so much more than that. And rather than just sort of thinking about you'll hear the term lift and shift these applications, take the time to modernize them, take the time to improve them, take the time to rethink them. And also there's a whole new operational model, right? Everything is now going to be reliant on code, and you've got to train people and start to get them thinking about it. So I would say that that's certainly number one. Number two, we've talked about it quite a bit, but it is a marathon. It isn't all of a sudden you flip a switch and you're done. It takes time. So getting your organization aligned for this marathon, super important. So stop thinking that this is just going to be a 3-month project and you're done. It is a journey. And thirdly, I would say to start thinking about a whole new skill set that you may need to build out internally. And whether that's assessing the current team that you have, whether that's starting to recruit for new roles outside the organization, but starting to think about how you're going to obtain those skills that you're going to need as you start this journey.
Trisha, thank you for your time today. Great insights to help organizations get prepared for their cloud journey. Today, we talked about how HPE can help organizations prepare and execute their migration to the cloud, and the value of cross-organizational teams and a careful focus on business value. This is the second in our series of webinars. Our next episode will be looking at the technology options available to you as part of that cloud adoption. Thanks for spending time with us today.